I'm Krystle. I've loved dolls my whole life. I collect everything from porcelain to cloth, American Girl, neonates, and real care dolls. But my favorite is to collect and make Reborn dolls. There's Chloe, Grace, Jeremy, Maya, Yuki, Savannah, Zoe, Haley, Landon, Maisie, and Joshua. It isn't easy keeping up with my collection, but it sure is a lot of fun. Hi guys, so I am here to talk about my thoughts on the Guardian article and video. I know it's been a hot topic the past few days since it came out, and I just thought I would share what I thought of it. So I wanted to start off by saying that I did listen to the thoughts from those who participated in the article. So I do understand where they're coming from and why they were upset and disappointed with the article. I can understand in that they were told that the video / article was supposed to help normalize the hobby, and they were filming with the interviewer all day, and so there was tons of footage taken, and they condensed it into, like, I think it was a 9-minute video. So therefore, you know, they cut out a lot of things that they had discussed, and they kind of took a different angle. So I can understand their frustration in that, definitely. And I feel for those that participated in that feel that they were misrepresented in the piece. And I wanted to quickly share my own little story about the media. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on my channel before, but a few years ago, I was contacted by a lady who was filming some sort of news piece or documentary about Reborn dolls. And I can't even remember where she was from. I don't know if she was from a Canadian news station or what the whole project was supposed to be about. I may be wrong, but I feel like they were going to be doing a series. Yes, okay, now I remember. Okay, so because I remember at the time she was wanting to see if Paula would want to participate as well. And Paula and I talked about it, and we decided not to take part for a few reasons. And so apparently this show, and I think that this show did come to fruition. I do recall watching it and being very glad that I did not participate in it, because it was about people who collect various things. It wasn't just about Reborn dolls. That's what it was. So in the same documentary or program, they had guys who have sex dolls. They had some guy that collects, not collects, he made these robotic looking dolls in which he made, I believe it was pornographic stop motion videos with them. So to have Reborn dolls grouped in with stuff like that was very concerning to me. I don't know that they originally told me that that was going to be the case. So originally they just said it was going to be talking about people that collect dolls and things like that. And the lady came to my home to do sort of a preliminary interview sort of thing, and none of this was recorded or written down or anything like that. But she came to the home and she saw my dolls that I had at the time, which my collection was quite smaller at that point. I didn't have as many dolls as I have now, and I don't even think I had that many American Girl dolls either. I think I maybe had one or two at that time. So my collection was definitely smaller. But she came over and she looked at the dolls. She asked Alex a couple of questions about how he feels about it. And of course he was like, you know, he supports the hobby and everything. I thought she was coming to focus more on the art because that was at a time where I was really into reborning a lot and selling my work. And so I thought the focus was going to mostly be on the art form and me doing art. But as our conversation progressed, she kept fixating on questions about, you know, do I take my babies out? Do I feed my babies and do I change them every day? Does my husband interact with the dolls? You know, what's like a daily, like a typical daily life in a reborn collector? And I was like, well, I pretty much like just display my dolls. I was like, you know, occasionally my friends and I will take dolls out to the mall just for fun. But I don't generally do that like every time I go out somewhere. And I explained to her, like, you know, occasionally I may change a doll's outfit and then maybe hold them while I'm watching TV sometimes. But usually I'll change their outfit for a video and then display them and leave them. But she kept like trying to like see it. Basically, I got the impression she was trying to see if I treat my reborn dolls like they're real babies all the time, like on a daily basis. And my answers were not, I guess, feeding into that interest and wasn't really giving her what she was hoping for. So in the end, she said she would be in touch with me and I never heard from her again. And I got the impression it was basically because I wasn't quote unquote crazy enough for the piece. So I felt like I dodged a bullet with it. And I do believe at one point it was mentioned that there was going to be a segment in the show about guys with sex dolls. And that was another thing that sort of turned me off. And I didn't really want to do it anyway. So had she contacted me back, I probably would have declined anyway. But I never heard from her again. So it was very clear to me what angle was trying to be accomplished with that. So I have my own experience with that. And I can totally relate in that area. With that said, I personally felt like the article was great. I really thought it was good. And I thought, so my understanding is a lady wrote the article, but a guy was the one that dealt with the video portion of it. So it was like two different people working on it, if I'm understanding correctly. And so I feel like the lady that did the article, she sort of did a better job at explaining the hobby, I guess. And I believe, if I remember reading right in the article, they were also interviewing like a psychologist who basically like normalized the hobby in her words. So that was great. I know people, you know, have mentioned like in the past how all the media pieces have always sort of gone that crazy route and playing like eerie music or creepy music, which I've always hated. And I know a couple people have mentioned like they thought that the Dr. Phil episode was like absolutely horrible and negative as well. And while I agree to some extent on the Dr. Phil episode, I felt like, okay, the lady that they had on the show that was giving her very strong opinions on the Reborn hobby when she clearly knew nothing about it. I did not like her per se, but my takeaway from the Dr. Phil episode was I chose to focus on the positive part of it, and that was that Dr. Phil, in his own words, said he didn't think we were crazy. Like, he actually finished off by saying, I don't see anything wrong with this hobby. I don't think these people are crazy. I think it's just a hobby they enjoy, and they enjoy collecting it. And he says, I see absolutely nothing wrong with this hobby unless it becomes unhealthy, in terms of that it becomes more like an addiction where, you know, you're buying so many dolls that you don't have money to pay your bills, which I have seen people in the community. I've mentioned this in a video before. I've encountered people in the community that rack up a whole bunch of debt with their Reborn dolls. They don't have money for food. They're going to the food bank because they've spent all their money on dolls. And that is where it is a problem. And I've talked about that in videos before. There is a fine line in this hobby, and it can become an addiction. It can. And, you know, he said, like, it would be unhealthy where, you know, you do start to think that the doll is real, where there's that break in reality that you totally think your reborns are real babies. And I know and he said, like, he knew that the majority of the people in this hobby don't think that. So he sees nothing wrong with it, which was great to hear from Dr. Phil. And I took away that portion of the show. So, you know, like I said, he just basically said, like, unless it's becoming an addiction, unless it's isolating you from your family and friends, or you are believing that these dolls are real, then there's no harm in it. And like I said, I do believe that there probably is that rare person in the hobby where it does become a problem, and it does become a break in reality where they think they're real. They treat them like a real baby all day long, and, you know, they spend all their time with their dolls and they neglect their families or friends. They spend all their money and have no money for their bills or food. Like, those things can happen. It's rare, but I have seen it happen. So I totally agreed with everything that Dr. Phil had to say. And as I said, like, my final takeaway was that he said, we're not nuts. It's a fine hobby. It's an innocent hobby. There's nothing wrong with it. So anyways, getting back to the Guardian. So like I said, I enjoyed reading the article. I thought it was well written. I thought overall it presented the hobby very well. Now here's where, I don't know. I know because, okay, again, I'm going to say the people that participated in the Guardian article and video, they know what was asked and what was discussed in their interviews. So I can understand how their view of the video is going to be different from mine, because they were the ones involved in the project and they thought it was going to be one way, but they saw it come out differently. As for me, as an outsider who wasn't interviewed for the video and I'm seeing it with fresh eyes, I personally found the video to be one of the better media pieces that I've seen on Reborn dolls out there, to be honest. I honestly did not get the impression that it portrayed anyone in there as crazy, or out of touch with reality. I really didn't get that sense. I felt like it, I don't know, I felt like it gave like a well-rounded look at the hobby in terms of collecting, making the dolls, and having the dolls for therapy reasons. Like, all three areas I felt were covered to the best that they could be covered for such a short video. Like, obviously, if they had have dedicated more time and had it be like a half hour to an hour long documentary piece, I feel like they probably could have done it a lot better. But comparing it to other things that I've seen in the media, I feel like it was one of the better ones, in my opinion. And I personally didn't think that the music used was bad. I found the music was very like a calming music, very lullaby-like, which is to me, like, I kind of associate that with the Reborn dolls because they do have a calming effect. I didn't hear any like eerie, creepy music like other news pieces had used before. So overall, I thought it was pretty well done. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Now, with that said, there's a couple of, well, not a couple, but there's one concern that I have with the feelings being discussed on the topic. And that's, I feel like there's been like a negative connotation put on people who do have the reborns because they can't have kids, or people who have the reborns for therapeutic reasons, or people who do enjoy the role play with their reborns. I feel like people have been so adamant about like, oh, you know, like, I don't do that, and most of the collectors in this hobby don't do that, so I don't like that the media keeps portraying that this is what reborn collectors do. And I can see two sides of the coin, and this is where I think like things are getting lost in translation here. So I can see two sides of the coin in that I understand that when it comes to the media, we want them to show the people that do collect because they like the art. They like the fact that these amazing artists make these reborns look so realistic, and that we just, you know, we just love dolls, or we just love babies, and we like to have that artistic representation. It's 3D art, and we enjoy the creative side of making our videos, you know, things like that. And I understand that the majority of the people in this hobby are like that with their reborns. And I do think it's important that the media can show that side of it as well. Yeah, like, I really think it is important, but also we have to look at the fact that the media is for entertainment. And so I guess in their mind, they think, well, it's not going to be as entertaining to watch if it's just people that are just like changing their doll's outfit and then putting them on a shelf to display and calling it a day. There's really no entertainment value, I guess. So I can understand how that works. But I just feel like there's been, like, because so many people are protesting against these media coverages, just focusing on the therapeutic reasons people have reborns. And I can understand why they're upset, because if they're not the type that has their reborns for that, they want to, you know, they want to be recognized in the hobby as well. But I feel like at the same time, while they've been trying to drill that fact, it kind of is putting a negative connotation on those that do have the reborns for therapeutic reasons and all that stuff. And I feel that's not really right. It's sort of making it seem like the collectors that don't role play, or, you know, just like to collect for the art, it makes it seem that they look down on those who do role play and who do have the dolls for therapeutic reasons. That's sort of how it's sort of come across to me in some of the videos that I've watched. And I think we need to be very careful with that because, you know, while you're saying in one breath, oh, it's fine that, you know, there are people that have them for therapeutic reasons, but then in the next breath, you're like getting so upset over the fact that it's portrayed that that's what the majority of collectors do, then it kind of it turns around and it kind of makes it seem like it's wrong that, you know, that some collectors have these dolls for therapeutic reasons. So I think we need to be really careful with how we discuss these things. And we need to be inclusive and we need to be understanding of everyone in the community, and that, you know, there are people in the community that can't have children and have these dolls for that reason, or for anxiety and depression. And it is an important thing to be careful how you talk about those things. With that said, I have seen some things within the community itself with some collectors who make YouTube videos. I have seen some YouTubers actually put the focus themselves on the fact that Reborn dolls are for therapeutic reasons, even when they themselves do not have the dolls for therapeutic reasons. So like, for example, there's this one channel I watch, I'm not going to name any names, but every time they do outings with their Reborn dolls and they get reactions on videos, I have oftentimes heard this exact question asked to her by the people that they're getting reactions from. They will ask her specifically, they will say, "So why do you have this doll?" And instead of her giving her own reason for having the doll, in fact, I have never actually heard her explain why she has the dolls, like her own personal reason. Because if her own personal reason is just that she likes to collect the dolls and likes to take them out for fun, sort of like what I do, then she needs to say that up front. But she never does. She never does. She actually immediately says, well, some people have them because they can't have kids, or some people have them for anxiety and depression. And then she'll sometimes bring up the, you know, Alzheimer patient thing, but she never, and then she'll end with, or some people just collect them for fun. But that's not answering the question in terms, like, she's generalizing and she's making it seem like everyone has it for the therapeutic reasons, because the very last thing she mentions is just some people collect them for fun. So, whereas I never do that. When I'm out in public and someone asks, I will just say, you know, if I'm with my friends like Paul and Marilyn, I'll say, well, we really just love dolls and it's a fun hobby for us and we like to get together and take them out just for fun. It's fun to get reactions. And then, of course, like, I'll mention that I make the dolls, Marilyn makes the dolls, and, you know, it's just a fun art and hobby that we enjoy. And that's all I ever say. Then if they proceed to ask further, they'll say, oh, well, you know, like, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, I can see, though, like, that, you know, this would probably be something good for some people that can't have kids. And then I will proceed to say, oh yeah, you know, some people do have them for that reason. Some people also like have them for anxiety and depression. I will further explain those things. But when I personally get asked why I have them, because they're asking me why I have them, I will give my true answer. But this person that I watch on YouTube, she never does. She totally evades the question and focuses on the therapeutic reasons, even though I know for a fact she doesn't have them for the therapeutic reasons. So that's where, you know, us as collectors, we need to advocate for ourselves, and we need to put the reasons why we personally have them out there. You know, we have to be our own voice. And so I think that's something else to really think about and consider, because you're the one that's portraying the hobby when you take your reborns out, and it's your chance, if you choose to. Like, I know some people like to take their reborns out, but they keep the car seat covered so that no one can see the dolls, and that's fine if you want to do that. Or some will take them out in a doll bag and no one in the public sees them. That's fine if you want to do that. But if you're going to be out and open with your reborn in public, you need to also be very open and honest about why you personally collect the reborn dolls, especially if you are the type that's just a collector and it's just a fun hobby and you don't have it for therapeutic reasons. Because if that's what we really want to, you know, diversify the explanation of the hobby, even though I feel like we shouldn't even have to explain our hobby. Like, guys collect trains, cars, all kinds of crap, and no one asks them for explanations or justifications as to why they play video games or do this or that. So I don't even know why we have to explain, but I'm just saying, if we really want to get a well-rounded representation of our hobby out there, it's up to us. And so that's going to bring me to my final conclusion, is that I really feel like the only way that our hobby can be properly portrayed and help normalize the hobby is if we make our own documentary. Like, that's the only way it's going to happen, guys. And believe me, I have thought of doing a documentary myself several times, but I just don't have the funds to get it started, because I obviously would need to travel to different artists, different collectors that would want to take part in the documentary for me to interview and film and everything. And I just don't have that kind of money to do that, unfortunately. But I think, like, it's definitely something that someone in the hobby themselves, like, a documentary needs to be made from someone in the hobby. It's the only way that we're going to be able to portray what we want to portray. And sure, it's not going to be some documentary that'll probably get aired on television, but it could be on YouTube and circulate that way. And I really think that's the only way that we can do it. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I watched the video clips that Kelly Girl's daughter took of her interview to see, you know, what things were said that they cut out, which was very interesting. And I actually found, I got a creepy, scuzzy, no offense to the interviewer, but I got a very creepy, scuzzy feel of the interview just from watching the video. I felt like he had this smirk on his face the whole time, and I felt like just looking at him, I knew what angle he was going to take. So that's unfortunate, but it's, I mean, you're assigning a man to film a reborn doll hobby that's mainly dominated by women. I think it was the wrong guy to have do it. But regardless, I feel like the media that, you know, is going to be on television and stuff, they're never going to portray us properly. They're never going to normalize the hobby. They're just not, because they go for the shock value and entertainment value. It's sad, but true. It's a reality we have to live with. But as I said, I think the only real way we can be portrayed the way we want to is to do it ourselves, guys. So I don't know how that would ever happen. Someone would have to take it upon themselves. And as I say, like, you got to think about it. Like, you would need, I don't know, you need money to do it. You need money. Because as I say, you're going to need to travel to different people to interview and film. But I would love it to see a documentary that talks to artists and shows their processes and then talks to all the different types of collectors that there are, and gives a very well-rounded look at the hobby and the art. But it takes money to do it, unfortunately, and so I don't know if anyone would ever be able to do that, but it's definitely an idea that needs to be considered. And I sort of tried to do it once, not really in terms of a documentary, but there was, I think it was the final Down East doll show that I attended before it switched over to the Rose doll show, where I actually went around and I did interview some artists as well as collectors for my YouTube channel. And, you know, I asked them different questions. Now, mind you, of course, like, I didn't have all the time in the world to go into too many details, so I just had very basic questions to ask them. But I felt it sort of helped to portray, like, the many facets of the hobby. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen that video, but if you haven't, I will link it in an iCard, and I'll link it in the description for you guys to go check out. But that was sort of my attempt at doing something like that. But yeah, I don't know how else I'd be able to do it other than having a crap load of money. So anyways, guys, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys feel about it in the comments. It's definitely a hot topic right now, and as I said, I can see all sides of it, really, and I think we have to look at all sides of it, and we just be careful with how you say things, because, you know, don't make it sound like you have something against other people in the hobby that don't collect the same way that you do. Because you know, in the end, we are all here because of Reborns, and we need to be accepting of each other, especially when our hobby isn't normalized. So, I mean, we are all we've got, right? So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.